Hello, good afternoon, students. So, with me, Pak Afif, Ikhwanul Muslimin, I would like to continue our discussions on introductions to English linguistics. Primarily, we are going to focus on introductions to syntax. So, we have discussed previously on some other branches of linguistics. The first is phonetic and phonology. It relates to scientific study of sounds, how someone perceives sounds and how someone produces sounds and how it relates to its meaning. And the second one we have discussed also about morphology. This is a scientific study of how the word is structured or developed. So the different shape of word may refers to different meaning. Then we also discuss a little bit on semantics that every word or every sentences or every phrases they also have different or very specific meaning. They have connotations. The meaning is not directly printed from the word, but they also have denotative meaning, that the meaning is directly from the word. Or maybe they are in the form of idiom or figurative language that we need to understand it from different point of view or using context. So our focus today is about syntax. Some scientists mentions that syntax is scientific study of sentence structure, so how the sentence is developed from words or phrases. And some others mentions that syntax is scientific study how words are put together to make phrase or sentence, how words are combined together to develop into a sentence, or how the words are phrased together to make it as a phrase. Or some others also believe that syntax is actually grammar, and the grammar is also syntax. So syntax is about the coordinations of word or elements of sentences that they have to follow some certain rules. That's why the grammar is also syntax. There are some characteristics in syntax. There are four. The first is generality. So generality means that all languages have syntax, although not all of them are similar. So the similarity and the difference between syntaxes in different languages are very interesting to be observed. So it means that when someone say ungrammatical or not syntactically correct sentence like car paints pop the, so the people will understand that this is not correct because they already have certain patterns that they always understand how other people use or how other people implement when they produce sentence. So generality here means that all languages mostly have a certain pattern of syntax. And the next one, as I've mentioned in the previous discussion at the beginning of our class, that there is what is called as universal grammar. So universality is another characteristics of syntax. So all languages have their own grammar, just like in English. A sentence usually consists only of two parts, that is subject and predicate, or noun phrase and verb phrase. And it also happens to our language like Bahasa Indonesia. We usually mention that there is subject, that is like saya, and then predicate makan. But some other languages, they have different grammar, like in Japanese or maybe Thai language or Chinese. But mostly the 90% of the languages in the world, they have similar grammar, or that's why Noam Chomsky mentions universal grammar. Another characteristic is about creativity. So because of the ability to understand syntax, it makes the user are able to modify their sentence that they are producing. Like, for example, someone would like to mention I like a pen. So the speaker maybe would like to explain the exact positions of the pen. That's why there is an ability to modify, like I like a pen on the desk. So on the desk here is kind of ability to modify a sentence. On the other hand, when the speakers understand that there are more than two sentences and the speaker would like to simplify into one, the speaker are able to modify the sentence into longer sentence, like Alpha knows, that's the first sentence, and the second one, I like a pen on the desk. So they can say Alpha knows that I like a pen on the desk. The fourth characteristics of syntax is inaccessibility. So here the grammar is not directly accessible to conscious introspection. So conscious means that aware or sadar. So as you know that native speak English fluently, they understand that some others speak ungrammatically or someone speak syntactically incorrect. How they can understand that one? Because they already have understand the correct sentence. So it means that they are actually uh, not knowing what is the exact syntactic structure, but they just compare the correct sentence with the non-correct sentence. So means that the syntax is usually understood by learning or understanding the generalizations of a certain pattern of data or linguistic data. That's why the scientists they develop the syntax based on three steps. The first, they start together and observe data. So the scientists they try to collect all sentences in a language. For example, in English they collect positive sentence, negative sentence, interrogative, and so on. Then after that, they try to make a generalizations of pattern. Oh, I see. So, for example, I like Soto and she loves Soto. They pretend to be blah blah blah. So they could make generalizations like, oh, a sentence usually made of subject and predicate. Then after they try to make a generalization, so they develop a hypothesis. The hypothesis of the English clause is a sentence or a clause consists of noun phrase and verb phrase. When their hypothesis is correct, they will continue to develop further discussions on the same hypothesis. But when the hypothesis is not correct, they will try to review and make new hypothesis. The other important things when you study syntax is you should be able to determine how we understand part of speech. So there are two ways to understand part of speech. The first is based on the semantic criteria. As we have discussed before, semantic relates to its meaning. So for example, when we have a sentence like the destructions of the city bothered them. So the word destructions here comes from the word destruct and also the suffix "ian." Morphologically, it means that this is a new word from verb to noun. Then the meaning is menghancurkan. So me and an in bahasa Indonesia is called as imbuhan or affix. Then it develops noun. So from the meaning, penghancuran here means a noun. And the second one is based on the where the word is situated in a sentence. Like in a sentence, the boyish dancer parked slowly the car between the houses. So usually we understand that the boy is noun. But when we look at this one, there is the blah blah blah, the dancer, the blah 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 dancer. Dancer here we understand someone who does something, and there is the before and there is a missing place there in the middle. So the boy here doesn't act as a noun, but it's a modifier that explains the dancer. So the boyish here, and we also see there is a suffix ish, means that showing a characteristics of. So boyish here act as an adjective. So based on the positions of the word in a sentence, we can understand that this is an adjective, while the previous one we have to understand based on the meaning. The next discussions is distributions. In syntax, there are two kinds of distributions. The first is morphological distributions, just like in the morphology discussions that we understand. There are two processes, there is inflection and derivation. It refers to the distributions of affix. So distribute is actually verb, but when you add the suffix "ian," it changes into noun. Then when you add another suffix like "al," then it changes to adjective, distributional. And the next part is syntactic distributions. It relates to the previous discussions on deciding the part of speech here, that we have to understand the syntactic situations or where is the positions of the word. For example, the is usually followed by noun, like in the students. The students here, students positioned as noun, but then the, like the in the diligent student, diligent here doesn't mean that it is noun, but you can see that Diligent is in between the and students. So diligence positions here is as modifier or some things that explain the word student. So diligent based on the syntactic distributions is an adjective. After we understand the distributions of syntax and also determining the part of speech, there are 9 of part of speech. The first is noun, second pronoun, verb, adjective, article, adverb, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. You have discussed this one since when you were in kindergarten, and we can see the difference between those of part of speech based on this example. You can see that the are example of article. Boy, dog, rescue, they are all nouns. Yelled, saw, run, they are all verb. While we also understand that there is a regular and regular and also present, past participle, and so on. Help here is interjections like exclamations, and as you have understood, it's a conjunction, so it can connect two words or two ideas or two sentences. And he there is a noun, so a pronoun. So it means that you have another pronoun like you, I, and so on. Brave here, you can see that this is a characteristics of the dog. It means that this is adjective. And then quickly, there is a li, as mostly teachers say that li is refers to adverb, so quickly is an adverb. And then yeah, rescue and boy and dog, they are all nouns. The bigger part of speech is phrase. So phrase here is a combination of word. So in phrase, we have to pay attention on what is explained. That is had and modifier. So the had become the name of the phrase. For example, if the focus of the phrase is on the adjective, so it's called as adjective phrase. Like in very big, because the focus of the meaning is on the big, so this one is called as adjective phrase. On the other one, we have is studying, because it relates to process or action. That's why it's a phrase. Noun phrase means that the focus is on noun, like smart girl. We are explaining about the girl, not about the smart. Adverb phrase, like in very quickly. And prepositional phrase, we have to understand there are some prepositions, and we use the prepositions in a phrase like after eating. So it means that we are talking about the time that is about after, it's not about eating. The bigger part than phrase is a clause. So clause can be combinations of phrase. So based on the book, we can understand that there are two kinds of clauses. The first is independent clause and dependent clause. A sentence usually consists of a clause or maybe more than a clause. So based on the book, we can understand that a clause consists of at least one noun phrase and phrase. Or we can say a clause at least must have an independent clause. We will not discuss about how to analyze the clause, but I would like to give you an example of the analysis of a clause. This is an example of analysis. Usually the scientists analyze a sentence using a tree diagram. We have TP here. TP means a tenses phrase. See, so in a tenses or in a sentence, we have noun phrase and verb phrase. That's why the branches are two. The noun phrase here we have Bill. So the complete sentence here is Bill frequently got his bucket from the store for $1. So the first branch is noun phrase, that is Bill as a noun. Then the second branch is verb phrase, and the verb phrase is parsed into 5 branches. The first is we have frequently. Frequently is adverb, that's why it's called as an adverb phrase, and it becomes adverb. Then the second branch in a verb phrase is verb, so we have the word got. Usually, some scientists mention that this is verb to, or we can make a in small bracket under the V there is a past. The third branch is NP. We have his pocket. His refers to determiner, showing who belongs the thing. So we have NP, his as a determiner, and bucket as noun. And the next branch is prepositional phrase, because we have prepositions before another phrase. So we have P, preposition form, and noun phrase consists of determiner the and noun store. And the last is the second prepositional phrase. So we have preposition for and noun phrase $1. So this is an example of how to analyze a sentence or a clause using a tree diagram. So later you will discuss about this in your syntax class. Okay, so this is all about syntax. So syntax is very important for us to produce grammatical sentence or create a good and correct sentence, while whether it is in speaking or in writing. Because when we do not produce a syntactically correct sentence, of course, hardly for the listener or the reader to understand what do you want or what you mean. Okay, that's all our discussions about introductions to syntax. I took this material from two references. The first is a book by Carney, 2002, entitled Syntax, and second one is from Mayer, 2009, Introductions to Linguistics. Thank you. I will discuss further another topics later in the next video. Thank you and see you. Stay studying and keep healthy. See you later. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.